Machines are in the worst crossfire they can imagine. How are you? Does your man look like me? No.
It's a funny thing about a Porsche. There's the moment you know you want one. There's the moment you first own one.
See that right there?
Out in the background, boys, in the background. The new buyback program. You buy it now, we buy it back when
For our government, far more than the official deficit figure, of course. The nation's total liability would be over $59 trillion, according to an analysis by USA Today. The debt equal to more than $500,000 for every household in the United States.
In recent years, China has bought lots of Americans' debts. The motivation under this is to protect their export market.
There's been a lot of discussion these days about the tight financial relationship between China and the United States. Well, at this rice shop in Hong Kong, I thought I'd take the opportunity to explain to you exactly what's at stake in this relationship. This jar represents the amount of debt or treasuries the U.S. had to issue in 2006 in order to finance its budget deficit. This rice represents China's money. 1 grain is the equivalent of 5 million US dollars. So in 2006, the Chinese lent the United States about this much, half. So let's talk now about 2008. The U.S. had to issue a lot more treasuries to finance its ballooning budget deficit. China bought about this much. So China bought 3 times more. It's a smaller percentage of the overall whole, but take a look at how much more debt the U.S. has. That's why the U.S. government is looking for buyers wherever they can find them, and China has a whole lot of cash. So why would China need to buy U.S. debt? Well, China has a lot of U.S. dollars from all its exports, and it needs a safe place to park those dollars and watch them grow. It's within China's interest to keep feeding the U.S. economy and help it grow so that Americans can be happy and well fed and buy more Chinese goods.
Because the U.S. is in so much debt and financial institutions have discussed lowering American AAA credit rating.
Is America's AAA rating at risk? Moody's is saying it is if the country doesn't get its finances in order. That has long been the view of former U.S. Comptroller David Walker, who wrote a piece in today's FT that the government has to rein in health care and Social Security costs. Mr. Walker joins us live from New York City in a first on CNBC interview. Explain the premise to us, and how real do you think the threat is that we could actually lose the AAA rating?
Well, both Moody's and S&P have said in the past that we face large and growing structural deficits that we're ultimately going to have to come to grips with. Now, that was a couple of years ago. The fact of the matter is that we're in much worse shape now. Just yesterday, the Medicare and Social Security trustees came out with their report. Medicare is going to not have enough money to pay its bills on time within 10 years. Social Security's cash flow is going to go negative within 10 years. We have serious problems, and Washington doesn't have a plan to deal with it.
The implication of this is yuan will increase in value in the future and the dollar will decrease in value.
Chinese President Jintao has called for free trade and investment liberalization during his address at the Asia-Pacific Economic Summit in Singapore. The Chinese leader has also put forward a 4-point proposal to boost economic growth and revive the world economy. For more on this, I'm now joined by financial expert Max Kaiser, who is in Paris. Hello to you, Mr. Kaiser. Now, is China trying to reduce its dependency on the U.S. as trading partner?
Sure, China would love to reduce its dependency on the U.S., and dependency is a good word. The U.S. dollar has become the opium of international trade, and China is addicted to U.S. opium dollars. Remember, the U.S. loaned China over $1 trillion so that China would be able to export lots of products back to America, but America has absolutely no intention whatsoever of repaying China that $1 trillion. America will never pay China back that $1 trillion, and they're forcing China to buy more dollars to keep their own currency from rising, thus killing their export market. That's why China is buying lots of this stuff, gold bullion. They can't get enough of gold bullion. India's buying gold bullion. China's buying gold bullion as a way to hedge themselves against these things. This is Warren Buffett toilet paper. Warren Buffett toilet paper here, the U.S. dollar. It's going to zero, and China has got itself into a conundrum because their entire economy is based on U.S. consumers buying Chinese products financed by the U.S. Moving a tremendous amount of paper through the system, and that paper is now becoming worthless.
Well, speaking about the economy, the economic situation in the country and the Chinese attempt to weather the economic crisis, how important is the stimulus of domestic demand in China in relation to that?
Well, it's very important to try to get their economy going with their domestic stimulus program. But they are building a lot of worthless projects. If you look at some of the projects they're involved with, they are what are really you could call ghost cities. Their GDP numbers are a bit inflated, and they are trying desperately to manage their domestic economy and to grow their domestic economy. They're doing lots more trade with countries like Japan and South Korea, again, to get themselves away from this U.S. dollar dependency. You know, it wasn't only back in the 1850s or so when China was hooked on opium as part of the opium wars that were in progress with the United Kingdom. This is kind of a current version of the opium wars, but instead of the opium, America is getting China addicted to this worthless piece of paper. And they can't get enough of them because they have a dependency on U.S. dollars.
In the globalized economy today, there is a new entity that has arisen, and it's often called Chimerica. And what Chimerica represents is this duality, or this relationship between the United States and China, the West and the East. And it's interesting that it has this name because in Western mythology, a chimera is actually a multi-headed beast. So it is yet to be seen if this relationship will pose some kind of, economic power over the rest of the world, or if it'll last at all. This relationship between the United States and China has brought a great deal of new ideologies and lifestyles to the Chinese culture. As we can see with the 1989 revolution in Tiananmen Square, these actions were proliferated by a desire to have a more democratic government where people had more say. And while there has been some change with the role of government and all of that, there's been a greater change in simply the lifestyle. There's been a more consumerist-driven economy within China itself, as we see in the United States today. And that has led to a booming economy that is really something that is unprecedented, that this economy has just exploded. Most interesting things to note about this relationship between the United States and China is how you can relate it to the philosophies of Taoism. And this is obvious in Taoism, where you have a yin and a yang entity. And we see this right now in China's economy, where the United States fulfills one role, and then there's the balance with China's role. As of now, Chimerica is meant to follow this Taoist yin and yang function, and the way that works is simply that we need each other, we support each other through what I would call a very, at this time, strong economic model. However, I'm not sure that it's very sustainable, and this is how that market works. China has a great deal of cheap labor, and through that cheap labor, it creates a lot of manufacturing goods, which it exports to the rest of the world, and a great deal of it goes to the United States. While China sells these things to the United States, they also buy the United States debt, propping up the United States economy. So one might theorize or be afraid of China calling in its debt. However, as of right now, that is not completely a threat, because if China were to do this, it would deflate the value of the dollar and inflate the value of the yuan. And by doing this, it would kill their export market, because if there was this change in currency value, then the United States would not be able to afford Chinese products. So both nations understand this, and as for right now, I don't think there's going to be a change. However, as I said before, it's not a very sustainable form of economics. I think the best thing we can do right now to avoid a cataclysm, a clash economically between the United States and China, is to venture out into new economic markets. And as we've seen, China is doing its best to do this. I mean, it's moving into Africa in ways that, haven't been done since times of colonialization. And I've yet to see a great new market for the United States. So as of right now, China is hedging its bets, while the United States is focusing on old models that will eventually lead to its downfall, in my opinion, and from what I observed. So we will see what happens. We will see. But again, we must venture, both the United States and China, we must venture into new economic formats.